second. Recording started.
Right. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. I'm Daly from the Open Courseware Consortium. I'm also an adjunct in Open College. And that was not that one on the recording.
No, it did.
And I worked at College Open Texas. I was the associate director and the director there for 2 years. And I know I've presented to a number of you before, because this is my third time presenting at MPICT. So, and I just love this conference. So,
whoa!
Why did you do that?
Whoa! Fire alarm! Huh?
I just don't want this. I think somebody opened one of the doors.
Well, I'll wait for Donna. I'll continue, and then if Donna pulls.
Well, I don't know.
Stop.
So a lot has happened in open access this year, open education, which I was mentioning to someone who just ran off. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is not the usual stuff I've come to talk with you about, which is affordability. And I know that's a huge, huge piece of why people go open ed. I've presented on that for 2-3 years now. So, and if you have questions about that, I'd be very happy to send you information on that and past presentations. What I want to talk today more about is what's happening strategically out there and looking at some of the big players out there and how it relates to community college. And open education in its current form is about 10 years old. And it started out being pretty static and it's gotten to be very participatory. And that's what I want to talk about. Sort of my little help me to put my slides together. And what I was hoping to do was hear who you are. So to the extent that I can customize my presentation, I will do that. So would you like to start?
Yeah, I'm at Dan's College. I'm a computer lab instructor.
All right. You work with Dan?
Yeah, I work with Dan.
Great.
Try and instill some skills and, learn the critical thinking skills. So
wonderful.
And then turns out they can function out there.
Okay. Exciting.
My name is Cheryl. I'm a consultant for the State Department of Education, and I provide professional development and resources for high school teachers.
Okay. Wonderful.
I'm Jackie Lee from Lake Chapel Community College, and I'm on one-person peer applications department.
Yeah.
One full-time.
Glad you could make it, Jackie. Jackie and I had a past conference.
I'm Colt Davis. I'm a 30-year IT instructor at the Community College and director in Minnesota, and very much into open schools.
Wonderful. Now, which college? I didn't hear that.
Open College in Fort City, Texas.
In Texas. Okay, great. I'm glad you could join us.
My name is Bob Seidman. I'm a professor at Southern New Hampshire University. I teach in IT for 8 years.
Great. Glad you could come.
I'm Kathy Ballas with a private company called MPICT January, Iowa, Clark State Community College, Springfield, Iowa, and 8 years.
Great. Glad you could make it.
I'm Margaret Bell from Community College. I teach computer information.
Everyone get a hand. Well, and it's on my recording started.
Sorry. No.
All right. So I was going through the highlights of this decade of sharing, and so Stanford started this Engineering Everywhere, which allows people to look at their courses as well. And, kind of fast forwarding to this last year, the DOL came out with these Trade Adjustment Act grants. And in September, they awarded $500 million to Community College Consortia. And in fact, we have a member here in the room who was one of the beneficiaries of that. And the big thing about that in terms of open ed is that any new learning resources that are produced must be openly licensed, which means the public is funding them, so this is public tax money, and so it needs to be available to the public going forward, and that means to instructors and students, etc. I think one of the highlights of 2011 for Open Ed and participatory Open Ed was the Stanford Artificial Intelligence course. 100,000 students, over 100,000 registered. And were able to have grades, take quizzes, etc. And they were given a certificate of completion at the end, and there's ranking. It didn't say Stanford, but there were actually Stanford students in the course, and they actually got credit. But and I'll go into a few of these other ones. So those
Is that doing machine engineering or something like that?
Yes, absolutely. There were several of them, but artificial intelligence seemed to be the one that really grabbed the imagination. So for those of you who are not familiar with Open Courseware, it's the creation of open materials, syllabi, making lectures available for streaming, etc., to the public. It started with just one school, and is now 250 institutions in 46 countries. And this is kind of a picture of the density of where those institutions are. It started out being fairly U.S.-centric, and this is the sustaining partners who provide a big part of the funding along with the Hewlett Foundation, and individual member colleges and universities actually pay a sliding scale fee, which is fairly small. For community colleges, it's $350 a year, or you can join as a consortium. But what I wanted to point out here is that less than a third of the sustaining members are now U.S.-based. So they're all over the world, ranging from Africa through South America, Mexico, Spain, and Korea, Japan, and China. So lots of big partners overseas.
Maybe you have Stanford on that chart.
Stanford does their own Open Courseware. So they are not part of the consortium.
Okay.
But we all work together in the sense that we're all promoting the same thing. We're all using the same open licensing. So we can use each other's. But, yeah.
Is the consortium the tip of a much larger iceberg of non-affiliated courseware, or do you think you represent about half of the courseware?
I don't know. That's an excellent question. I joined the group about a month ago. So beginning of December I joined. Although I was working with them somewhat at College Open Textbooks, which was very community college focused, and now I'm the community college outreach manager. I don't know that, but I'll try and find out. There is a lot of other, I can speak for sort of the U.S. colleges, the universities. There's a number of them that haven't come in the fold. Harvard, for instance, has its own. Yale has its own. Princeton has its own. Some of those East Coast ones will come under the Open Course. There's sort of negotiations going on. I think if we speak with one voice, it's more powerful than having all these separate ones, but you know how politics is. So this just shows you the growth from 2003 to 2011, and so we're almost at 18,000 open courses now, with almost 4,000 translated. And of course, that's the beauty of open licensing, is that you can translate those, you can customize those courses. This is kind of interesting, and maybe I should have asked you this question before about profiles. Who do you think is using Open Ed without looking at the slide? The one thing I have to say that really surprised me, is that faculty this says 12%, and if you look at other surveys, it's somewhere between 8 and 12%. That's actually the high number, is 12% of faculty. So it's not being used by educators much, which I thought was surprising because it seems like a wonderful resource. And what I mean by that is by other instructors coming in and using it. Obviously, the people who put it out there are faculty and professors.
For population?
This one was it was open to all Open Courseware Consortium members.
Because, quantity, the total number of teachers compared to the total number of students?
I don't think so. But there was about 5 different institutions that did surveys, and they all came out roughly the same. So about 40% are professionals or self-learners. who are looking to improve their career skills or perhaps work on a specific project at work and they need that skill set. And then the other 40% roughly are students, and either in high school. Yeah.
Did you say that they were all authored by faculty, though? Do we know who? We don't. They're all authored by faculty.
The Open Courseware, yes. And so as an institution joins, it's their professors who put their materials up there. Yeah. So what's changed in the last 10 years is we've moved from just a static, you can go up there and read that stuff and learn it and teach yourself, to actually providing assessment and credentialing as part of the Open Courseware package. And it's still in the fairly early days, but it's definitely a direction. As I mentioned earlier, this was the Artificial Intelligence course, and Stanford was really the first one to do this, to allow people not only to watch the streamed lectures, but take the quizzes, take the exams, and get a certificate at the end. And a really interesting thing was the University of Freiburg in Germany actually gave students credit. They proctored exams. Anyone, it's mostly from Europe, anyone who could come to their site could take an exam there, and they would get, and if they passed, they would get University of Freiburg credit for the Stanford course. So, interesting things happening. This was just announced right before the holidays by MPICT, and that's going to be a nonprofit extension within MIT, so very much like our extension programs at the colleges. Open enrollment, the assessment will be available, and they're going to give credentials to students who pass for a modest fee. They haven't said what that is. It won't be an MIT credential, it will be an MIT extension credential. One exciting thing, in addition, if that isn't exciting enough, is that they've developed an open source learning platform, MIT has, and they're going to make this available to other institutions. So other institutions can replicate it, in theory. There's a couple of other examples out there that are more on a global level and maybe a little bit harder to kind of envision where they're going, but they're very interesting global efforts. So there's the OER University. They're partially funded by Hewlett as well. They're based in New Zealand, but there's a number of U.S. colleges. There's one up in New York State. There's some in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, I think at this point. And what they're looking at is having students learn by themselves, but they have academic volunteers who are available online to help them. Students will be able to take open assessments from participating institutions, and they will get credit from those institutions. And they're about a year and a half into their work, and so a very interesting direction.
You went to school in New York?
Yes, Empire State. Yeah, you weren't surprised, huh? Yeah, it's a very innovative school. Tertiary University is now kind of on the other range of, it's a very open, I was in a presentation earlier today where they were talking about how when you use project-based scenarios, you're not really a teacher, you're a facilitator. Well, that's what peer-to-peer university is. I taught 2 courses with them. I facilitated those courses. Yeah. And so you can teach anything. I taught open textbooks and open educational resources, how to create them, how to license them, how to distribute them. And I had somewhere between 35 and 50 students in the class. The assessments were pretty general purpose. It was mostly discussion forums, and they're actually becoming more structured. And I wonder if any of you have heard about badges. Okay, so there's a digital media grant being offered by the Department. In fact, tomorrow I think is the deadline for one of the waves of the grant around awarding badges to learners who can show competency. Donna, did you want to mention anything about it?
Well, I think I don't know a whole lot about it other than that it gives you a lot of choices, and so you can have these, you can kind of collect the badges and piece together an education.
Yes.
As I understand it.
It's a video game model. I mean, I played that with video games.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a Girl Scout model too.
It is. Well, it's really not any different from a certificate in many ways, but it's going to be a digital certificate. So it will be displayable on your resume digitally. It can also be displayed on the institution who provides the badge. The badge tends to be kind of sometimes it gets the back up on some people about that terminology, but it's really not all that different from certificates. There's some big money behind it right now, grant-wise, and it's primarily focused at ICT, web development, programming, those kind of things where skills-based competency may be just as important as a degree in computer science. So, yeah, stay tuned for that because it's, the Department of Ed has also put their weight behind it. So, you know, it occurred to me in listening to the MPICT and the Stanford story that they're doing a lot of the things we're doing at community colleges, open enrollment. So with their Open Courseware, participatory. So open enrollment, look at the target audience, students pursuing credentials, professionals and self-learners. It's a big part of our audience, okay? Affordability, that's us. Credentials, degrees, certificates, that's us at the community college. So the question is, can we both do it? I think there's a lot of, I think there's some question, but I think we're the experts in this. We've been doing this for years and years. The good thing about the Stanford and the MIT programs is that they're all open, so there's no reason why we can't use their materials, the data that they gather, to improve our community colleges. So rather than feeling threatened, I think we should think about collaboration. For those of you who've done open source, it's kind of interesting to look at this because I know initially when people say, oh, open your course and let everyone see it. What is it that drives people to open source? Usually they want to learn something. They want to build their reputation, which could mean more money later on. And for instructors who've written textbooks, they often go on the speaking circuit. They may not make a great deal of money, but even though it's an open textbook, they're not charging for that, but they're actually consultants. So that's part of being a reputation. Another thing is those social connections that you build because you're working in a community. And then number 4, and I think this is pretty valid, the greater good. So there's a lot of, I hesitate to use the word selfish, but there's a lot of selfish motives to get started on it. And then, wow, the greater good is something that comes about by sharing it.
Change the word to pragmatic from selfish, and I think you're fine.
Thank you. I'll do that.
But I do want to mention that the trend in four-year colleges is how are we going to burden these kids with so much debt? And a lot of us are going, you know, maybe a 4-year degree isn't for everybody. There's plenty of good jobs out there that don't require a 4-year degree. So I think there's going to be an even greater resurgence in the junior college area. And the thing about the badges that made me laugh was thinking that it took like 3 badges to make a certificate. And then I'm thinking like protons and neutrons. Like, you're actually constructing degrees like you construct.
Well, and they're looking at having hierarchical badges.
Oh my
so you would.
But the problem is acceptance. I mean, you can give a course with a great name and kids can get credit, and then they try to take it to another school, and the other school goes,
right.
Not so much.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. I think some disciplines it'll work better than others. Yeah.
The skills-based thing, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, portfolios is another piece. I'll leave that for another day. I wanted to give you an example of something that happened at a community college, or rather at the community colleges in Washington State. Has anyone heard about the Open Course Library? They had a big announcement this fall. So this started a couple of years ago. Washington State Board of Technical and Community Colleges, there's 34 of them, said, you know, we really need to lower the cost for our students. It's becoming too expensive for them to buy textbooks. So they went off, they got some funding from Gates primarily, and they went off and had faculty and instructional designers submit competitive bids. They got stipends. They weren't huge, but they got reasonable stipends to develop courses. They developed the first half of them. And they were accessible. They've done a lot of really high-quality work. And they actually taught them last year. And this spring they revised them, and then they were posted this fall. They're available for download. You can the link is on the site. In fact, they're in Common Cartridge if you like. There are several sites, as a matter of fact. If you go to the OpenCourseLibrary.org, you'll find them. And what their strategy, they said, well, we built what we needed, for ourselves. And then now we're sharing it with others, and they only see good things coming from this. They're getting partnerships with other people who want to leverage their expertise. So it doesn't cost them anything after they've developed it to then share it out with the rest of the world, essentially. So it's an exciting project, and I hope you'll take a look at that. And here's the courses. And I'm sorry, there are no ICT courses here because ICT does not come into it may come into the top 80. This is the top 40. But you can see that some of these are what your students in ICT are taking as other courses, either breadth courses or science courses and business courses. So it's quite a wide range. And if you talk to the people there, they say, you know, there's not much we can add to a Sociology 101 course. Why don't we have a standard one that's used? I mean, it's open license. You can customize it for your particular situation, but we don't need to keep reinventing it at every college. Interesting thought. Now, I'm wondering if we have time for this. So I wanted to try this with you. I haven't used this before, but I've presented with other people who have. And I wanted you to take your handout. Does everyone still have their handout?
No.
Oh, okay.
Unless it's not part of the regular packet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this one. Anyone who needs one, I have extras.
Thank you very much.
And I want you to take just a couple minutes and write down what it would take. What are the things that you need to think about if you were going to implement this at your college or institution? And I realize not everybody's at one, but some of you have experience and already know what those might be. So try and write down 5 if you can. I'll give you an example, just in case I'm kind of pulling this out of my hat at the last minute. So if faculty are going to develop open materials, customize, or take existing ones and customize, they probably need some release time. So that's a school policy, because that's, rather than taking a book off the shelf, if they're actually integrating open materials, they're going to have to learn some of this stuff, and it's going to take a little extra time. So that may be one thing you might want to consider. No. It's fine with me. All right. So it wasn't meant to be a hard test. What I want you to do is, if you could just talk to the person next to you. It's okay for you to combine. If you're an odd person out, it's okay to combine with someone else.
Will you summarize this?
Yeah. And try to find 3 items that are in common with
Well, I mean, I know it's great that yeah, why should they develop it? Maybe we get what I see yeah, it could not would be, you know,
the persistence there. That doesn't reject it, right? Kids are good parties. They like one, they want these discussions. So this actually is the practice, but real practice. What is the value?
Yeah, I like that value to the institution,
exactly,
to the student, and to the
that's great. Well, my students, it's totally nothing. It's not really amazing to these typewriters. It was a tech, it was a business plan. And a little bit from the 50s, I don't know if I know that they were out in the no, we're talking about the small time school. We get along with them, and they still want to let us so now we're the big e-game school. It's programming e-game.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to finish up. 15 seconds.
Okay, so the amount of students,
Well, I know.
okay, what else did you say? Well, part of it was right, but it seemed my opinion is that I got my kids through school.
Okay, all right. Thank you for humoring me on this one. And what I'd like each group to do is, why don't you mention your top three, what your intersection was, and how about if we start in the back? Did you find three, or however many you found that you both felt were reasonable?
I don't think we had any intersection at all.
Okay. Well, why don't you mention, each of you mention your top two then?
Well, since I'm not a faculty member, I was coming at it more from a philosophical from the understanding.
Sure.
So two things came to my mind, which are kind of interrelated, and that is, if I'm a student and I'm paying you at a live university, and you're going out and getting the stuff from some free site that I could have gone to and gone, yeah, it's for free, then where's my value added? Is my value added you as a faculty member and what you're going to do to enhance that and advance it? But if you're just grabbing it and throwing it into an online class, for example, live class, then what's the value added? So,
Those are good questions. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I guess I was just curious so you sort of said, well, an intro 101 course is an intro 101 course. Well, if that's true, then what customization, what faculty time developing and what producing how does that?
Those are good questions, but I'm not. So what I probably should have been more specific about is that content tends to be pretty standard in those courses. What faculty brings to it is unique. Yeah. No, very good. Yeah. What did you think?
I was thinking of it from the perspective of developing the course. So I was thinking of training inclusive open source software for the person developing it.
Right.
And in collaboration, if they're multi-people developing the course.
Yeah, those are good questions, and maybe I'll have time at the end, or come up and I'll mention to you some of the stuff they did in Washington. Yeah.
Philip and I were on the verge of a fist fight.
I could tell.
No, I take this from the point of view of an instructor, and I'm so insensitive about being replaced by a robot. Maybe it's just me. But this is something that could be so quantified that it would make it very easy for the